Redirecting to Facebook.
Here we are.
All right, we're live. Greetings, everybody. So we're running on Indian time today. But that's all right. We were having some technical difficulties at first, but we got it figured out, I think. If you see anything that you notice, please go ahead and make sure you let us know in the comment. But I'm here today with our wonderful guest and partner at Klamath Trinity Resource Center. I think I missed something there.
Conservation District.
Conservation District. The regional director, Meagan Baldy. She's back with us today. And I've also got my co-host, David. You might know him as Sunner's Hostler. And so welcome, everybody. If you guys want to go ahead and say something about today as we get started.
Hey, everybody. Meagan Baldy here again, the district coordinator for the Klamath Trinity Resource Conservation District. I'm happy to partner with Two Feathers. I think their food sovereignty series is pretty cool. I've learned a lot of different things from the different speakers that they've had, and just thankful to be a part of this project.
Senders, you want to introduce yourself for the crowd?
Yeah, I'm David Hostler. I'm the case manager for Sober Living here in Hoopa. I'm glad to be a part of Food Sovereignty. It's an amazing series. I've watched all the episodes prior. Really good information, especially for our communities. Thank you.
So today Meagan's going to be talking with us and showing us the process of canning up deer meat. So as you guys know, now is the time. The late summer into the fall time is kind of our traditional hunting season, and now we're in the it's tag season too, and so now's the time to go ahead and gather our buck meat, right? And so before we do that, we're gonna gotta always make sure we know what we're doing with it. So for me, I personally enjoy canning my meat because then it's ready to go. It's already cooked. You really don't have to heat it up if you don't want to, but even if you can just add it into your stews and it's ready to go, or gravy. It makes really good gravy. The list goes on and on. So go ahead and take it away, Meagan.
Hey guys, so I'm going to give you guys a couple different techniques on canning up your deer meat. First, I'm going to start off with some jerky and how you make that. As many of you guys know, when you get a whole deer, it's a lot to deal with. Even if you're giving some away, to your family members, your elders, and everybody, there's still a lot left. And so I wanted to kind of touch 3 different areas of preservation. One would be just basically having jerky and dehydrating and how long that process takes. It's not very long at all. And then also utilizing the entire deer. So a lot of times people get a deer and then there's meat kind of left on the backbone, or there might be meat left on the neck bone or on the ribs. There's just different places that you can glean that meat off of and try to use as much of the deer as possible. But also that bone marrow that comes along with canning it off the bone is super, super beneficial. It's got a lot of calcium in it, vitamin D in it. It's got a lot of protein in it, a lot of things that are really great for your system and really great for your family. So I'm going to show you guys, how I do that. And as you can hear, I got a pressure cooker going off in the background, and that's actually meat in the pressure cooker outside of the jar. And then I'm going to show you how to raw can. So first off, make sure your hands are washed. I washed my hands right before we started. Basically, they say that the biggest thing about food safety is it starts right here. It starts with your hands, how clean they are, making sure that, you don't leave anything left over from the bathroom trip, or you're not touching stuff that might have bacteria. even more so today when we're in this pandemic, washing our hands is super, super important. So they say the best thing to do, and I'm just going to demonstrate, is you take soap, you put it in your hand, you wash like this very vigorously, like this for 20 seconds. And then you want to make sure you're getting this part too. A lot of people, you know, don't really think too much about this area, but all of this whole thing is going to be touching meat. And so, you know, you always have to remove jewelry, especially me when I'm touching meat and stuff. I have to take off my rings and make sure that I'm not getting a bunch of meat stuck in my rings that are going to be there later and that can cause bacteria growth. So you want to be hands clean, hands free. And so washing your hands are super, super important. When it comes to canning, you know, there's very much basics, and I've went over it a bunch of times, but if you're brand new, you know, this is a regular jar. This is a quart jar. I always quart jar can my deer meat. I have 6 kids, and so I have a large family. And so 1 quart, you know, if we're going to take it out for stew, or if we're going to use it for tacos, or if we're going to use it for gravy, usually 1 quart's pretty good for a family dinner setting. And so I always use that. It's been pretty standard. And so basically the makeup is, this is your base of your jar all the way around. This is your ring. This thing can be used over and over and over again. It's not a one-time use. And this is your lid. Now this lid right here has a gasket around the top of it. That's a single-use gasket. Now there are other lids out there that you can get. They're called Toddler Lids. Those ones can be used over and over and over and over again. And as long as you can use them, you can use them. They're like a one of those like doomsday prepper items that I have laying around here. I don't use it as much. The reason being is because I like to hear that pop sound when the jar basically seals. It pops. The Toddler Lids, the only way that you can really know that for sure that they seal is you'll just have to lift off the side right here. And if it doesn't lift up like that, then it's sealed. So those are just the difference. Okay, our canners, I got 2 pressure canners over here. I have one right here. It's just a regular standard size canner. And then in the back, I have the huge canner, which is 64 quarts. This is 32 quarts. This one's aluminum. This one's cast iron. So they're 2 different types, but I have actually deer meat inside of here right now cooking, and I'll show you guys that as soon as we get to that point. So we're just going to jump right into it. For all of you out there, I'm going to hand the camera over to my cameraman, Robert, and we're going to go from there. So right there is the switch to camera. Did you switch camera?
Yeah, switch is on you.
Okay, so what we got here, and if Robert can kind of zoom in on it, is this is an Excalibur dehydrator. It's the Cadillac of dehydrators. This one, the RCD owns. We wrote a grant and we were able to secure it. And we have 3 of them. One of them is at the high school, the home economics room. One's in storage, but this is the one that I use when we're doing shows. This thing is awesome. It's got like so many different settings on here, but the air actually comes from the back and it moves through these shelves right here that are in there. And so right now, as you can see, I got some deer meat in there that I pre-prepped and put in there. The shelves are square, and then they have little like mesh screens on there. And these mesh screens are going to go between here and the deer meat. So what I usually do is I'll cut up my deer meat into thin strips, and then I will put, if you want to show them, I will put a paper towel down on the countertop right here while I'm salting and pepper. And basically all I do is you just take your deer meat and you just lay it out.
About how far do you lay them out?
You just want to make sure that you're not touching. So it doesn't really matter the amount of space as long as you're not touching, because you want that air. So here are things that kill or make rancid meat or vegetables or anything, that any type of food: air and moisture. So moisture and air is what we're trying to fix, but we're going to use air through the dehydration process to draw out that moisture in these deer strips. And so one of the good things about this is you can have this deer meat in a bag laying around and you don't have to worry about it going no good. Pretty much it doesn't lay around too long in my house. Everybody eats up the deer meat really, really fast, especially the deer jerky. But really, you just want to make sure that, you know, you're doing everything that you can to put up this deer meat, whether it's making jerky, whether we're canning it, whether we're cooking it, because the main thing is, and all these men that are here today, we got Bubba, we got Sunners, and we got Robert, they understand how important that this life was for their family. You know, they go out and they pray and they prep and they do all these things, and that deer comes to them and it gives its life for their family. And so we want to do everything we can with this meat to put it up. So this is just an easy process. And basically I'm going to lay it out right here. Now, I'm going to wipe my hands off just really quick, and I'm going to grab my salt and pepper shaker. And then Robert, you can watch it be salted. So right here, you just want to just evenly salt the top of your jerky. Now, salt is a preservative, but also the air drying out the deer meat, and with the salt will make it last a lot longer. You're going to pepper it if you want to. You don't have to add pepper. You can add big chunks of like the red crushed peppers, anything like that. But you just want to evenly coat the top of your deer meat. And so once I put it into the dehydrator, just like that, I put the door on it, and up here, if you can come up here, Robert, there's the settings on here. So this one right here, it says herbs, living food, raising bread, making yeast, or making yogurt, vegetables, fruits, and then fruit rolls, which is like fruit leathers. Then you got your meat and fish, and you got your jerky. So the jerky is way up here, and it's all the way up, but it just doesn't look like that on the dial. I'm going to turn this on for a good 10 hours, just like that, and let it go. So then, using this paper towel, I could just move it out of my way and get ready for my next project. So I cubed up a bunch of deer meat. Just, it was odds and ends pieces. It was some of a ham, and I started putting them into the jar. So basically you want your cubes to be fairly the same size, you know, just, you don't want huge cubes and small cubes. You want it to be really kind of uniformal in the jar, because, you know, you want it to all cook really good and not have it, you know, some of it be kind of, it's not going to not cook because it's going to be pressure cooked, but it's going to, like, some of it's going to be really soft and some of it's not going to be as soft. So as uniformal as you can is what you want to do. And so I take my jar, I got my funnel, I'm just going to load it in to my jar. Now, this recipe right here for this is a raw can of deer meat. This is raw. It's not being pre-cooked. So for this one and the other, it says to you leave 1 inch of headspace. So I always just fill it up to about right there. And this is right here, this area right here from the rim to the top is called the 1 inch headspace. The reason why, especially when it comes to meat, not just meat, but deer meat and fish, they're really oily. They have a lot of good stuff in it, but that, if you put it too high, say I put this all the way to the top of this, jar right here, then I want to put my lid on, and if that juice bubbles over the sides right here, it'll compromise that seal, and that's not what you want. I'm gonna wash my hands really quick. Now, if anybody has questions, please let Bubba know or Robert know, and he can answer and take questions too in between. Okay, so I washed all my jars, so they were all brand new, quart-sized jars, but even if they weren't brand new, what I do is I'll wash them in a soapy water with a cap full of bleach, all hot, rinse it off, and then I boiled my legs And so what you want to do is make sure that you boil your lids, wash them too. Even though they're brand new from the factory, you can't really trust basically the coating that they put on it before they shipped it or anything. Like, you know, you hope that every factory wouldn't have like birds or rats or any type of vermin, any type of rodent. You know, you don't know for sure. So the best thing to do is wash. Same thing if you're doing it at home, you're gonna want to wash it. So we got it filled up. We're gonna take this right here. We're gonna wipe around the top, the rim of it. Make sure we get any excess meat or juice that's off the top. I always use like a dry paper towel. We're gonna add our lid and our ring on, and we're just gonna, it's so right there, it meets the point of resistance. I'm just gonna finger tight it, one more little click. Not over tighten it at all. I'm gonna finger tight it. So it looks like we have a little bit more in here, so I'm gonna add it to another jar. I'm gonna wait until I have some other deer meat cut up before I cook it. So you just want to add it all in there, and then I'm gonna put that aside for a little bit later, and I'm gonna wash my hands again because I touched meat.
We have a question from the audience. Someone missed the part on how big you want to make your jerky strips.
So usually I'll just cut them up, and so there's like pieces in the ham. So like, I don't know if you guys were able to watch the show that I did of butchering, but there's just certain pieces in a ham or just anywhere, like even in the shoulder, that are just like flat or maybe that big. And I just basically cut them up into just like maybe a ½ inch, quarter-inch thick long strips. And it doesn't have to be like against the grain or with the grain, any of that. You know, you can do it any which way you want because it is jerky. If you do want it tougher, you'll want to, you know, go with the grain. And if you don't, you know, you'll want to go against the grain. So just mainly just like finger size, thickness, length strips. Okay, so I already put together some jars. I have my canner over here. I turned my water on, but I'll have Robert come on over here as we load these in. So everything about doing this part, it's about like being like a robot. You want to go in and slowly put it in there. You do not want to hit anything, or basically you don't want to, you know, make it tilt, because if it wasn't raw, most likely the raw is not going to affect it. It will add juices underneath your seal, and you don't want that. I'm just going to load it in there. Just like that. And then I'm going to add the lid to it. We're going to start the processing there. So this canner right here is a all-American canner. It's 64 quarts. It's huge. I'm using it today because I'm using this to do my deer meat in. So we're going to use this one to process. Basically, there's these locks, or these kind of like little things on the side that lock onto the thing so that the lid can't pop off. One cool thing about these canners is they don't have a gasket, but they do have your regular dial, and they have right here, this is the spigot that the air is going to come out of, and then you'll start to see all this steam coming out of it. The one thing about these canners, though, you have to tighten counterclockwise, or like counter. Basically, this one has to be tighter with this one.
Adjacent from each other.
Adjacent from each other. So they have to both be tightened at the same time. So I'm going to go from that one.
So directly across from each other, you have to tighten them.
Directly across from each other. Those are the ones that you want to tighten with each other.
Now, how hard do you tighten them?
I don't tighten them that hard because I don't want them to be too hard for me to get off. But usually I just tighten them like 2-finger tight. And then, so I forgot to mention, after I put the jars in, I already pre-added water in there, but you want to add enough water to the bottom of your canner to at least cover about 1 inch of the bottom of each jar. So once that is tightened down, we're gonna wait for the steam to start coming out. So this little thing right here is the spout. This is where all the steam's gonna come out of. Once that steam comes out, I'm going to put my weight on, which this canner comes with I forgot what these ones are called, but anyways, they're has 3 settings on there. It has 5 pounds, has 10 pounds. Can you see it? And it has 15 pounds. I'm gonna put it on the 15 pounds because usually when I can deer meat, I want it to be between the 10 and 15 pounds for 90 minutes. So this one, you'll have to put it on the 15 pound. And when you see these types of weights with the different numbers on them, you'll want to go with the number above. Okay, so if it said 10 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes, you'll want to go to the 15 because you don't want it to go above that one. So if it's 5 pounds of pressure, you'll go to the 10. But if it's like 4 pounds, which I've never seen anything that was 4 pounds that I've processed, so I always just go to the weight higher. And a regular canner like this one, basically what it has is just a regular old weight. Now this one I turned off when we got on, and I'm just gonna start pulling this out here pretty soon and show you guys what I have in there. It's almost down. So basically I took the neck of the deer and I put it in here with a little bit of water, and then I processed it on the between 10 and 15 pounds for like 1.5 hours. And now when I open it up, it's down to the 0 now, but I don't want to open it yet because if you see this right back here, this guy right here, he's still up. That means there's still pressure inside this canner. And you don't want to try to open it without it going down. See, it just went down right there. Now it's nice and down. So now I can remove this guy and I can open it up. Okay. So I'm going to wait for steam to come out of this one, but I'm going to show you guys what I have in this one. If you guys want to ask a question or you think I'm going too far, missing details, please let me know. Okay. When you open a canner, it doesn't matter what's inside here. It could be deer meat, it could be cans of stuff. You want to first, like I said, make sure that this is down. Make sure that this is 0 and make sure that this is not spitting out anything. The reason why is because if you open this canner when there's pressure still in it, this lid can blow off and hit you in the face. It could hurt you. So you want to be very cautious. Now, everything is right. I made sure it was all off and everything was good, right? So now there's something very hot inside this canner, right? This deer meat is very hot. When I open this part, I'm gonna open it like that. You see all that steam that escaped from it? I'm not gonna open it the other way because I don't want the steam to hit my face and burn my face. Okay, so you wanna come over here? And you see that this neck is in here, and you see all this meat just coming right off of it, just like that. This right here is some good stuff. Gold. Now, this is going to be basically, it's not like a raw pack, it's a hot pack. And basically, like you can see those neck bone pieces are coming right off. All this juice right here, I'm going to be adding into it. So I'm just gonna come through, and what I do is I just kind of scrape it off with my tongs. I start pulling it all apart, pulling everything off. Once I pull it all off, I'm gonna add it into my jars.
It smells really good.
Mm-hmm. It is really good. So, Bubba or Robert or Sunners, if you guys want to kind of talk about, while I'm shredding all this off, like the importance of hunting and like the respect of an animal, I think that would be really good while I'm just taking things off.
Yeah, I can go on something like that. I guess the importance of hunting is providing mainly for family members, for me, and then our own family as well. We always process deer meat every year, the jerky, the canning, and we always give away to our elders. So those are one of the things. And then also what I was taught when I was younger was once you do take life, that you pray, that life is going to help sustain your life. You give thanks. And I always firmly believe that Creator put us like in the same place at the same time. Like things happen for a reason. So those are some of the things that I kind of operate out of whenever I do go and harvest, deer meat. And I think the benefits of deer meat is by far way better than, beef. And I think that's one of the most important things about why we do it. It's cheaper. It's a lot of protein. It's really good for you. So I really enjoy being a part of this food sovereignty, where we're discussing these things.
Yeah, and we're canning up the the lean muscly part of the deer, but you talk about the nutritional benefit centers, getting into the organs too, the heart meat, the liver, the kidneys. If you eat that kind of stuff, that there's vitamins, nutrients, minerals that really can't be found in much more places. I can't say that they're not found anywhere else, but they're not found in many other places than in those types of foods. So it's really, and that kind of goes along, for me, it goes along with this idea of not being wasteful, and managing what I take, and processing what I take, so I don't always eat the livers. I know certain elders that enjoy them a little bit more than I do, and so I give those away. But I love heart meat, so yeah, that idea of utilizing everything that we can, and like Meagan said earlier, the bone broth, that's something else that can be canned up too. While talking about canning, like when I'm done with a deer, there's kind of really not much left than a spine and a skull. I utilize just about every other part, the hooves, for regalia items, the bone, either for like tools or a lot of bone broth. Yeah, the sinew, I've been saving a lot of the sinew. So yeah, it's really kind of goes along with what we've been saying about, that respect that we have, because it is a life that we take, when we do this, when we go out and we hunt. Is there anything you want to add, Robert?
Sure. Well, I've always been taught that I'm a provider, and I need to provide for my family, not only for me and my mother and my father and my siblings, but also to my elders. So whenever I harvest a deer, I'm not the one getting the best cuts of that meat. I'm usually the one probably getting the worst cut, but I'm usually giving out the best cuts, like the back strap, to my elders. And I'm just repaying the favor of them raising me and giving me life. And I think that's kind of the meaning of taking a life, is you're also helping out life in your in your family. So I've always been taught that when we're going hunting, it's not just for fun and games. It's also very respectful. We're not going to take more than we need. We're not going to go out there and just kill anything we see. It's all about respect. So I've always been taught that we always use every part of it, and that we're not going out there just for fun and games. We're going out there for a purpose. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just like, this is what's great about, like, yeah, I'm here canning, but there are so many intricate parts to this whole food process, right? Every family member plays an important role in food security. You know, when it comes to this, like, I'm home, like, I'm the one, like, yeah, I'm going to be putting it into the dehydrator. I'm going to be canning it all, or I'm going to be doing, you know, certain different things that, you know, go along with this process, because, you know, I'm playing my part and the other kids are playing their part, you know, like when they're harvesting it and when they're butchering it, you know, all the kids are coming in the house with the shoulder or with the back strap or with, you know, a different part of the animal, and they're bringing it in, and then we're all a part of that process. And so I think that's just great.
Yeah, harvesting deer has been a big part of my life for a long time. I go back to a picture my mom took of me a long time ago of me harvesting a huge buck. And I was the one skinning it out, butchering it up, and doing all the process. But if you look in the picture, you'll see my dad. He's looking over my shoulder, making sure I'm doing everything right and in the respectful way. And then if you look even closer in the picture, you'll see my uncle. He's a little bit, he's one of our elders, and he's sitting down and he's just watching over both of us, making sure we're doing the right thing as well. So it's just the three generations coming together for one cause. So it's always great to go out there and do this with my family. Like even now, like my little brother, he's just coming into his own, becoming a provider, and I'm taking on that role of showing him how to do it. So it's been very important to me to learn from my father and my elders so I can pass it on to my brothers and my children in the future.
Yep. Okay, so we got this steam coming out of the top of this. Right now, I'm gonna put my weight down. What I'm gonna do is just let it start raising right here. Once this gets to 10 pounds of pressure, I'm gonna turn it on for 90 minutes. Now it's super important because you're gonna be going up and down. After it hits 10 pounds of pressure, I'm gonna start adjusting my heat and my temperature on my canner, because once it gets to 15, if it goes to 20 and above, that's a caution area. This is where people are like so freaked out and afraid that this thing's gonna blow up on them, but it really won't. As long as you keep an eye on it and making sure it's between that 15 and 20 pounds right there, you should be fine. But what you do is eventually, the one great thing about this canner is a cast iron. The heat will hold in a good area and it'll eventually even out. But some canners you might have to adjust more. Everybody's going to be different. Like if you're using propane heat to using electric heat, it's all gonna be about finding that sweet spot. Now, let's say you went below 10 pounds of pressure and you had 15 minutes left on your processing. You really have to go back and turn it back up, bring it back to 10 pounds of pressure, and you got to reset the time clock to 90 minutes. So make sure that you're right here, you know, or in an area where you're very close to your pressure canner. The more attention you pay to your pressure canner, the better off your stuff is going to be. In regards to like safety, in regards to making sure that it's processed right, all of that goes along with it. So I'm going to be watching that while I'm over here with the bone broth. I'm just going to be looking back and forth. So I was able to get some of the meat off of the neck, and so I put it into this jar right here, and basically I'm going to put it only up to this 1 inch headspace again. The reason being is because this right here could boil over once it's pressure canned, because in the pressure can, it's under so much pressure that this is still cooking too. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fill it up to that area of all kinds of goodness is in this jar right here. So the bone broth is in here, and it's going to be canned with the deer meat, but also that fat of that deer meat is in there and that juice. And this is going to either be turned into like a deer meat stew, and I could add a little bit of flour in it to make it a thick stew, or I'm going to make deer gravy with this. And so all of this broth is really good. And I'm just going to fill up my jars, and I'm going to process those too at 10 to 15 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes as well. So no different. If you just had the broth, the straight broth in there, you would do the same thing. I forgot to mention, but I put it in there beforehand because I was pre-prepping everything. Every one of the jars requires a teaspoon of salt. So every one of these jars will require that, and I put it into the raw canned deer meat as well.
Hey, Megan, I think they wanted to know a little bit about how long you put the neck in the pressure cooker. I think it was 90 minutes. If you already covered it, I can't remember.
It was about an hour and a half. It all varies. Like I'm gonna put it back in for a little bit longer because it didn't fall off the bone all the way like I do. Basically, it's gonna just take some time. You know, it depends. Everything is different than the other. So it's going to take some time, either or, whether you're, boiling it for a long time. But usually the rule of thumb for myself is I'll put it in. I kind of look at it a couple times throughout the entire process. So I'll turn it off and then I'll open it and then I'll see if it falls off the bone. I really want it just to fall all apart, everything to fall apart, that whole neck and that whole meat on that neck to fall apart. I'm going to actually put this back on afterwards, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys what to do and how to can it. But you want to process it however long it takes to fall completely off the bone. And you want that whole neck bone, even that backbone or hip bone to kind of just fall apart. Off the bone. And you want that whole... So I'm at 5 pounds of pressure. I'm just going to keep going. Another thing I was going to talk to you guys about was like I was saying earlier, every single one of us have a part to play in this family, at our house at least anyway. And, sometimes like I'll have my youngest and he'll be salt and pepper man of jerky. And you know what? Note to self, watch Salt and Pepper Man on jerky. So I made a ton of jerky the other day, me and him, and he was doing the salting and peppering. I just want to show you this thing. That is a salt lick. We're going to eat it, but I'm going to have to eat that with a lot of water. So note to self and note to you out there, watch your salt and peppering. Okay, as soon as that goes up to pressure, I'm going to start to put this thing back on. Okay. So I've showed you guys all kinds of different techniques and stuff, and I'm just going to show you guys a couple of just extra stuff because I made jerky. I'm making bone broth and neck bone jars. We do tons of stuff. Tons of stuff. Now, these are the ribs. And this deer meat had a lot of good fat on it. It's got a lot of good fat. I'm going to cut these ribs up for you guys. And we're going to put them in the pressure cooker after that other one is done, which I'm going to turn that back on here in a little bit. And I'm going to eat this for dinner. We're going to put a little bit of barbecue sauce on top of these, and we're going to eat it. So the most important thing I would say of butchering is how sharp your knife is. If your knife ain't sharp, you're going to be struggling with this, but it's also not only is it struggling, irritation, annoyance, it's also safety. It's like if your knife ain't sharp enough to go through the meat on these ribs, and there's a little bone at the end I'm going to show you that we're going to have to cut through, then you're going to struggle. And if you struggle a lot of times with a knife, you can cut yourself. So basically what I do with my ribs is I'll find this spot right here. If you guys can see it, there's a spot right in between the bone and the meat, and I'll find it and I'll go right through it and I'll cut along there. And then you kind of let it hang right here in this area because that's going to cut right through that bone in that perfect spot. Meat is so cool, especially when you're butchering it with a knife. It like has like these paths alongside the meat and the bone that it will cut it off without having so much struggle, which is really cool. Like when you cut up a ham too, like there's all these different sections in meat and the butchering, and you get this kind of, you can fill it out, you can pull it apart. It's just really, really a neat thing to deal with. This one I'm going to leave on there just a little bit. I'm gonna cut this one's kind of big. Come on.
Yeah, that would be a little piece of advice I'd give to anybody that's kind of starting out or whatever. The first couple of deer that I did, it took me, I had some help and everything, but I was a little nervous and how am I going to do this? How am I going to butcher it up? But like Meagan just said, there's kind of once you get into it, there's those like little natural muscle groups and different pathways that you can find, and so it's not. If you're gonna go for a quality, selling it at the market cut, it might be different. But when you're cutting it up for your home canning and jerky and stuff, it's a little bit easier than you might worry about, I guess.
You got it, Mom?
It just don't want to come off right here.
Don't cut me.
Oh yeah, right. I'm gonna get cut. But yeah, so like you just can follow the patterns. Like there's this huge bone that goes right here. Not a huge one, but it kind of goes in here, and you can fill them. They're just kind of fun to just like find out where that path is to cut around it. It's not like me because I'm on live. All right, I'm not gonna struggle with that anymore. So if you guys have any questions right now, we'll take any kind of questions too.
I was gonna ask, what do you think the benefits of eating deer meat over store-bought meat is? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think a few things. One, that connection to the meat is way different because you don't know where it came from, how it was treated, if the person that raised it with love and respect, that kind of stuff. Plus, you don't know what type of hormones or chemicals or whatever that they're putting into those animals, what they might be. And so when you get deer meat or wild caught meat, they're eating from the forest. And a lot of our deer around here, they're one of their main food is the same food that we like. It's acorns. And so what they're putting into their body is so good and so beneficial. So you're eating something that's really, really, full of flavor, but also like full of nutrients that, without chemicals in them. You'll start my timer.
Yeah, I think that piece of that connection to it is a big part of it for me. Like Meagan said, before we go out, we pray. When we get the animal, we pray. When we're cooking the animal or the meat, the animal goes into the meat, we transform it into the meat that we eat. We pray over our food. And so by the time it gets to the dinner table that you're eating, that your friends, your family, your loved ones are eating, it's been prayed over like 3 times already. It's kind of the way that I go about things is,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's that connection, and so that's a big part of it for me. What do you think?
I agree. take something real quick.
What do you think, Centers?
I like that. I like that idea that it kind of goes like overlooked when you're doing it because, you know, it's just a natural thing for us to pray for things, but kind of speaks about like, you know, camp down there when we're getting ready for ceremony. We're constantly praying and, you know, and you can taste it. I mean, and the acorns are the food, and when it's cooked with good spirit and some love, you know, it tastes better. It always has. So I think that's a very important piece when you're going out and harvesting deer, is that you do pray, that you take the time to give thanks for that life. It's very important.
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't think there's much more better that a woman could get is to see like their children and their husband working together on a piece of meat, and then them cooking it and eating it together. And just like when, you know, I can this meat, it's going to be super special to me because I'm going to be like, oh, you know, that was when Robert got this deer, or that was when, you know, one of the other ones did this. You know, it's like that memory is implanted into that food. And every time I open anything, really, especially when I'm doing things with my family, every time I open a jar of huckleberry jelly or, you know, salmon or anything, I can just think about those times and those memories that we share with one another. You're creating a connection and a relationship with that food.
Whoa.
Oh, sorry.
Well, not only that, it's also really nice to reap the benefits of your labor. Like, I went out there and we went and got this deer, and we put a lot of work into it, and it's just really nice to sit down and be like, yeah, we got that deer, we processed it, we did that. It's more satisfying to do that than go into a store and buy a pack of meat and just cook it up, and you just forget about it. It's a lot more pleasing in my eyes when I know I did something instead of something being done for me.
More satisfying.
I agree. I like the heritage part. I like the heritage part that Robert spoke about earlier, where it's handed down. It's handed down for generations, where, you know, people learn how to sustain their own food and how to, you know, go out and get it, harvest it, and take care of it, process it, the whole nine, like I do with my kids. Yeah. So I think that's one of the most important pieces, is the heritage part.
Sorry, trying to get through this bone right here without having to use the meat cleaver in your guys' ear.
I think you caught on the wrong side of it, Mom.
I know what I'm doing.
We did have a question from a little bit earlier about, you know, because the new phase is the Instant Pot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you suggest canning in an Instant Pot or just cooking, keeping that to cooking meat?
I mean, if it makes your life easier, I say do it. Like I feel like us natives, since the beginning of time, have always found tools or have found different techniques to make their life easier. So I'm like, I always think that Native Americans were such innovators. Like we're innovating, like we had that ingenuity, right? That Native ingenuity. So if you find that that's something that makes your life easier, do it. But for me, like, because I can so much, it's just too small for what I would need it for. But if say like I had that neck left over and I wanted to take that neck and I wanted to pressure can it in the Instapot, instead of like pulling out the counter from the shed and getting it all out, I'll just do that. But it just depends, I guess, if it makes your life easier or if it's more work.
And then what was that the website for the canning recipes again?
It's called the National Center for Home Preservation. It's basically all of those have been scientifically tested recipes. If you use that website, your recipes, you're gonna know that your food is gonna be very safe for home preservation. So I use that recipe, a lot of those recipes on it. It doesn't really have deer meat or fish. It has fish, smoked fish, but it requires to use the use of a smoker. And the reason why is because there hasn't been no scientific testing to come into our smokehouses, check our temperature there, and making sure that that temperature is at a safe level for food. And so basically even the same thing with deer meat. There isn't like nobody that's actually kind of utilize wild meat through that type of testing. So these recipes won't be on there, but there's tons of other stuff like salsa, tomatoes, all kinds of different stuff on there. But it's the National Center for Home Preservation, and it's free. So like there's all kinds of other sites that you can go on to, but that one's free, so it's a lot easier. Somebody here?
Let's try your husband.
Okay, do you guys have any more questions? I'm gonna wait until I can cleaver this meat.
I don't. That looks like all the questions from the audience. Is there any final thoughts that you had, Meagan?
Yeah, so like I showed you all kinds of different techniques and different things that I like to do. But make sure like every family is different, right? Every family is going to have a different preference. Maybe the family, would rather have, a bunch of deer meat canned for tacos or canned for, gravy, or maybe they just like a lot of jerky or fried deer meat that's fried crispy to bacon. Whatever it is, like adapt your family and your food preservation around that concept. So like my kids like the jerky. My kids like all this other canned stuff that I do, but if I was like had different kids that possibly didn't like some of this stuff, I wouldn't be putting a bunch of stuff up into the cupboard that they're not going to eat. So rule of thumb, everybody thinks is like, how long does the food last that's preserved, right? How long is this canned deer meat going to last? Well, the rule of thumb is 2 years, but if it's past that 2 years, it should be fine as long as it's not like bubbling or looks gross. But you should really be eating that food up faster than 2 years. So this food is meant to eat and it's not meant to just save. So I just want people to kind of take that into consideration when they start like doing these types of things. Like, what is it that my family enjoys?
Yeah, for me, those are my two favorite things. Canning and jerky. And that comes from personal taste and preference, but it also it's practical. We've been going these last couple years. We've been going through a lot of power outages. Knock on wood, we haven't had a really really bad one yet this year, but it's not uncommon. For especially in Hoopah, downriver and upriver like communities. For in the wintertime especially. For the power to be out for a period of time. And when you have your stuff that's like dried out all the way or canned up, you don't got to worry about your freezer, not that I don't have, not that I don't freeze some meat, or backstrap or, different things, whatever, but yeah, you don't have to worry about it when it's in a jar.
Yeah, as long as your family eats it, like it's not going to be floating around in your freezer. Oh, quick tip too, make sure you date everything. Like I have issues with that. Sometimes I'm like, when the flip did I can this? Or like, what is in this jar? Is it huckleberry jelly? Is it blackberry jam? What the heck is in here? Make sure you label your stuff and date it, because I'm like one of those people that mess that up all the time.
You will forget.
Yeah, you'll forget. It's easy to forget. Be like, oh, I'll get to that later. I'll just go ahead and put it in the pantry, and I'll be like, when did I do this? When did I can this? When did I? Yeah, so make sure you're doing that. Proper labeling is very important.
We did. Do you have any other questions, Centers? So we have one more question, but it's a little bit off topic. Or any final thoughts?
No, I don't. Final thoughts? I think that the jerky for me, I mean, I'm in between smokehouses right now, but the jerky for my family, man, they devour it. They always have. And being able to can some stuff up is always a great thing to have on your shelf. The only problem with that is I have a labeling issue too. I usually try to label when it's kind of hot and it doesn't, I just have problems with it. I never really do it right. So, but we usually eat it all up quick. So with eels, fish, deer meat, we usually use it fairly quickly. Other than that, I do freeze some deer meat. I do that because I want to give it away sometimes, and I just don't know to who. So I usually keep that in the freezer for, a rainy day for somebody.
Yeah. So the question that was a little bit off the topic, and I think I know the answer, but somebody was asking about your earrings, Meagan. And they look like Jimmy Hatter earrings, but correct me if I'm wrong.
They are your grandpa's earrings. They actually are special made, and they say Raider Nation on them, and then also the Raider Nation hair stick. I'm a Raiders fan, die hard, and Cousin Hatter knows I'm a die hard Raiders fan. We did a little trading, actually. I traded him some, I think, huckleberry jam and some fish and some stuff, and I sent it down to him, and he sent this up to me.
Oh, nice. See, right there, trading, and that's the benefit of preserving. When you have canned and you have dried things, you can send them off to people that don't even live in this area. That's
exactly.
Nice. Yep.
We love to barter. We're natives, but
yep.
That's the beauty of how we think of things compared to how America thinks of things, right? To us, there's not monetary value to it, like $1. Like I can't put $1 amount on this deer meat, right? But I can say, hey, I'll trade you X, Y, and Z for your beautiful jewelry, or somebody might have like different things that you don't have, and you can trade around. That's one of the beauty about food sovereignty and food security, and just having that native economy, and not just the way the world does things.
I like
also
it.
Makes really good gifts.
Yep.
Christmas gifts.
Yeah. It's about cost and worth, right?
Yeah.
If it's worth it to you, it doesn't matter the cost.
And I think that's a great thing to think about too, is like, all this heart that all of us put into this food, it's going to be showing, right? Because like the men, they go out, and like Robert said, those memories that are into this food, and this heart that you put into it is just way different than the outside world looks at things, as opposed to how we look at things traditionally.
Yep. I think those are very great points, Meagan, and I appreciate you spending some time with us, and I appreciate you coming on, Robert, and Centers too. This is a great conversation that we had.
Yeah, I really do. I think it was great.
I want to, give a chance for any last thought before we send off for the day. Otherwise, I thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining in with us. And if there's any answer or any questions that I didn't get a chance to answer, I'll try to go back and look at the Facebook comments. Otherwise, be sure to tune in. We're sticking with every other Friday at 2 p.m. And so our next food sovereignty series is going to be highlighting like the winter squash. We're trying to keep them seasonal, right?
Uh-huh.
And so now, now's the time for deer meat. And so also something that, coming out of a lot of gardens right now is some hardy winter squash. And so we're going to look at, different ways that we can utilize those. And so that'll be October the 23rd, I believe, at 2 p.m.
Awesome.
So thank you, everybody. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.